Hey, welcome to a very special episode of Prelude to Ulysses. This is the one where this is Alex reads the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the ancient Quiche Maya. Now, last time we learned something important. I don't remember what it was. Let's see what I wrote down. Ooh, there's tape. I wrote that the letter V means you, and the letter X means sh. So if I was going to say Vixen, I'd say Vixen. Okay? U-I-S-H, Yushin. That's Vixen in Quiche Mine. So here's a map of the Quiche people. Looks like most of the dots are in Guatemala. Central Guatemala. That's fun, isn't it? So we're going to start with the introduction of the Popol Vuh. Last time we read the foreword and the preface. And do we really learn that much? We usually don't. So we're going to do part one of part one. So it's the introduction. The introduction is fucking 80 pages long. So this is going to go on for quite a long time. Maybe we'll learn something. Or should we just jump right into it? I feel like I really wish I read the Satanic Bible introduction, but it wasn't 80 pages long. That's this much. It's like 20 episodes. Well, let's just get started. I'm going to read the introduction. Well, let's read the first sentence of part one. Let's see if we can get it. Part 1, Chapter 1. This is the account of how all that was in suspense, all calm, in silence, all motionless, still, in the expanse of sky, was empty. Man, I like that. What should we do? Oh, there's so many footnotes. Baby. Let's learn something. Let's do the introduction, okay? Is that all right? It's 80 fucking pages. If you don't want to hear that, skip to page. Skip to the chapter. Skip to chapter 1. No, skip to part 1. This is gonna last for fun. Oh, there's a preamble. Oh, motherfucker, there's a preamble. Oh, and it's chock fucking full of footnotes. There's so many footnotes. Oh, yeah. This book is going to fall the fuck apart. It'll be fine. So, this is my first experience of WOB, World of Books UK. They sent me this thing that was just not even fucking glued together. Jesus. Okay. Let's do it. For real. Shut the fuck up. Not me. You. Okay. So part 1 of the introduction is called The Chronicles of the Indians. When the conquest of Mexico by the Spaniards was completed, Hernan Cortez, who had heard of the existence of rich lands inhabited by a number of tribes in Guatemala, decided to send Pedro de Alvarado, the most fearless of his captains, to subdue them. Just one guy? To rule them all? Where's Mexico? Okay, so Mexico is connected to Guatemala. This is an old map I'm looking at, so just bear with me, all right? Chill out. Okay, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's Mexico. It's just Chiapas, Veracruz, Campeche, Yucatan. Is that the Yucatan? Oh, it's in the, I don't know anything. Okay. In the 16th century, the territory immediately to the south of Mexico, which is now the Republic of Guatemala, was inhabited by various independent nations which were descended from the ancient Maya. Founders of the remarkable civilization whose remains are to be found throughout northern Guatemala and western Honduras. Where's Honduras? Right north of it? In Chiapas and in the Yucatan, Mexico. And in Yucatan, Mexico. That's where the Mayans lived, had quite a spread, didn't they? I thought they were more of a confined people. Like that they just kind of all lived in one city or something. That's stupid, isn't it? You're not stupid. Thanks. Okay, you got this. Of the nations located in the interior of Guatemala, the most important and numerous, without doubt, were the kingdoms of the Quiche and the Cochiquel. I think I had it right last time. Cochiquel. Rival nations which had often made war upon each other for territorial. Wait, is this still in the 16th century? I don't know. Rival nations which had often made war upon each other for territorial, political, and economic reasons, and which continually disputed each other for supremacy. They're both Mayan cultures, but two different kingdoms. The Quiche and the Cochiquel. At the time of the Spanish conquest, the Quiche nation was the most powerful and cultured of all those that occupied the region of Central America. In 1524, all right, I gotta go back. Okay, so this is all in the 16th century, yes. In 1524, when Alvarado attacked the Quiche, the Indians offered vigorous resistance. But after bloody battles, they were forced to surrender before the superiority of the arms and tactics of the Spaniards. Do they have guns in the 1500s, 1600s? I wish I was a smarter man too. Probably, right? As a last desperate measure, the Quiche kings decided to receive Alvarado in peace at Yutatlan. Where's that? Yutatlan. It sounds like a city on the coast. Whatever. It's probably not on this map. As a last desperate measure, they tried to decide to receive Alvarado in peace at Yutatlan, their capital. Okay, so it's got to be somewhere in there, right? Yutatlan, yep. It's southwest of where, more west of where I think Guatemala City to be. In the middle of the mountains. It's all mountains. It's not all mountains. It's pretty much all mountains. Everywhere I was mountains. Okay, shh. But once within its walls, the astute Spanish captain suspected that they were trying to destroy him and his army in the narrow streets between the fortifications. And so he withdrew to the surrounding fields and there seized the kings, condemned them to death as traitors. So wait, hold up. So they invited him. They're like, hey man, just come on. You can have it all. We don't give a shit. And he's like, no. And then they ran to the fields. And apparently the kings followed them to the fields or were already there, then condemned them to death as traitors and executed them before their terrorized subjects. Then he ordered the city razed to the ground, R-A-Z-E-D, and the inhabitants scattered in all directions. In a letter which he addressed to Hernan Cortez, a douchebag, apparently, giving an account of the campaign, Alvarado himself describes the motives which he believed were those of the Quiche kings and concluded with these words. as I knew them to have such a bad will towards service to his majesty, is that a king or something? And for the good and peace of the land, I burned them and ordered the city burned and leveled to the ground, because it is so dangerous and so strong that it seems like a house of thieves, more than the abode of people. Here is a footnote. Carta Relación de Pedro de Alvarado a Hernán Cortés, dated at Udetlan, April. Okay, never mind. We don't need to read stuff like that. That's a nice source, though. When the conquest of the Quiché was completed, when the massacre was done, it is conquest. What a pretty word. Let's make some tea. You want to hang tight? Or you want to come with me? Yeah, I think you want to hang tight. I'm not a real person. Okay, let's get going. When I ordered this book, I thought it was Aztecan. I don't know where I got the idea to read this book at all. I don't know why I had the words Popolva underlined over there, and then I had it written in my notes, and then I had a bookmarked page for this book. If anyone was wondering why this is happening, I don't know. When the conquest of the Quiché was completed, it is likely that a part of the inhabitants of the Yucatan... Cork! Sorry, guys. I know no one's there. I do. I like to pretend, okay? It is likely that a part of the inhabitants of the Yucatan, especially members of the nobility and priesthood, who had their houses in the capital and saw them disappear in the devouring flames, moved to Chichicastenango. That's where our buddy the priest was at. Ximenes, right? Yep. Ximenes lived in Chichicastenega. Chichicastenango, as it is still called, became. Oh, whoops. No, I missed something. Moved to Chichicastenango, the next town, which the ancient Quiché called Chuila, or Place of Nettles. Later, the Spaniards named this town Santo Tomas and entrusted its pacification to mysteries of the religious order, who converted the inhabitants to the Roman Catholic faith and introduced them to the civilization of the Old World. That's a weird sentence. The Spaniards named the town Santo Tomas and entrusted its pacification to missionaries of the religious order. The missionaries converted the inhabitants to the Roman Catholic faith and introduced them to the civilization of the Old World. What's the Old World? I would think they're in the Old World. Maybe they mean like the Bible shit. In this way, Santo Tomas Chichicastenango, as it is still called, became an important center for the Quiché Indians, which prospered throughout the 300 years of Spanish rule, and which today is still one of the most industrious and extensive Indian communities of Guatemala, and the mecca of foreigners who are strongly attracted by the natural beauty of the place and the picturesque dress and customs of its people. At the beginning of the 18th century, Father Francisco Ximenes of the Dominican order, lived within the thick walls of the convent of Chichicastenango. Father Ximenes was a wise and virtuous man. Shh. Who knew the languages of the Indians and had a lively interest in converting them to the Christian faith. It is probable that in his dwellings with them and through his help and fatherly advice, he had won their confidence and had succeeded in having them tell him the stories and traditions of the race. Why would you give a shit? It's not for God. It's not from your stupid God. Hey, let's leave that shit on Alex Reads the Bible. Let's try to not hate openly everybody on the planet that isn't an atheist. I don't hate him. Shh. Having some real struggles on Alex Reads the Bible. Bro. It's not this. But it's about the Christian faith. Well, I haven't even gotten to the Christian part. I'm in the Catholic part or whatever. The Old Testament. It is hot garbage. Okay. Christian faith. Wow. So they ended up telling him how they felt about life, their philosophies and religion and deities, perhaps. And it seems like he wrote this book. I don't remember what he did. He translated it into Latin, right? Okay, just keep reading. Ximenes, as I have said, was an accomplished linguist, and therefore had the advantages of being able to communicate with his parishioners directly in the Quiche language, concerning which he has left valuable grammatical studies. All of these favorable circumstances helped to overcome the natural distrust of the Indians. Natural distrust of the Indians. Think about that sentence and think about what happened before. They killed their kings in front of them and burned their town to the ground, forcing them to move to another town where they then indoctrinated them into some European faith. Now, religious indoctrination of what might be considered by 16th century Europeans was not a pleasant, fun experience as far as I am guessing, based on the time I got cooked up and watched Bury My Heart, a Wounded Knee. Is that the right movie? Are you thinking the right thing? Probably not. Whatever, keep going. Coca-Cola. Jeez. The natural distrust of the Indians. I just think that's a really gross thing to say. I think it's just written poorly. I think what he means to say is it's natural that they distrusted him because of this. But the way it's written to me, I've read it, probably because I'm a ding-dong dummy, as Indians are naturally distrustful. We're just going to move on because I think that I pulled a ding-dong dandy on that one. All of these favorable circumstances helped to overcome the natural distrust of the Indians, and it is probably due to this fact that, finally, the book which they so jealously guarded, another strange wording, jealous, and which contained the ancient histories of their nation, came into the hands of this Dominican friar. So, I'm confused. I thought there was no specific written history. Preface. Wow. Okay, I'm confused who writes anything, but whatever. There is a book, and they handed it to Ximenes to regain their trust by learning their language and asking about their stories, being genuinely interested. This document, written shortly after the Spanish conquest by a Quiche Indian who had learned to read and write Spanish, is okay. Cool. Fine. Okay, this is how I need things written. For someone to understand easily. This document, written shortly after the Spanish conquest by a Quiche Indian who had learned to read and write Spanish, is generally known as the Popol Vuh. I've barely been reading at all. Popol Vuh, Book of the Council, Book of the Community, the Sacred Book, or National Book of the Quiche. And it contains the cosmogonical. God, I fucking forgot what that word means. Oh, creation myths. Cosmogonical concepts and ancient traditions of this Aboriginal American people. The history of their origin and the chronology of their kings down to the year 1550. When did this happen? They were attacked in 1524 by Alvarado. Okay, this is fun. History books are fun, aren't they? The name of its author and the fate of his original manuscript, that which was handed to the friar here sometime in the late 16th century, I'm guessing. Yeah, I don't see a date. Which remained hidden for more than 100... Okay, and the fate of its document, the fate of his original manuscript, which remained hidden for more than 150 years, are unknown. See, I'm confused again. So the manuscript was hidden for 150 years, but they had chronology of their kings up to the year 1550, but Jimenez didn't come until after the Spanish conquered, which was 1524. So this document, as in a whole part, could not have been accomplished until at least 1550 as a whole document, manuscript, or whatever you want to call it, sacred text, sacred book. Then it says it was hidden for 150 years, which means at the earliest it had to have been uncovered in the year 1700. Am I right or am I stupid? Am I stupid? Because it says they had the chronology of the year. The latest date is 1550. And it said the latest date involved in the writing of the book is Kings from the year 1550. The name of its author and the fate of its original manuscript, which remained hidden. The fate of his original manuscript, which remained hidden for more than 150 years, are unknown. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah, it does. Because it says at the beginning of the 18th century, 1700. Fuck, Alex. Come on, bro. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's hard to get numbers right, okay? It's not just me. Dotson! We got Dotson over here! Is that what I look like? I feel like I look like that guy. It's a good shirt. Okay, you got this. It was hidden for 150 years. Jimenez came far after the conquest. Okay. This document was produced in around the mid-1500s, mid-16th century. And the document was uncovered in about the 1700s, early 1700s. Not that complicated. You got this, buddy. Thanks. The name of its author... No, don't read that part again. Father Jimenez, who found it at his parish at Santo Tomas Chichicastenango, that's hard to say, transcribed the original Quiche text and translated it into Spanish under the title Historias del Origen de los Indios de esta provincia de Guatemala. This transcript in the handwriting of this priest historian is still preserved, but no information has survived concerning the original document written in the Quiche tongue. Quiche. Let's look at this up in the dictionary. I want to say quiche correctly. And I think it's quiche, is my guess. Do you want to go dancing with my butt? And do you want to put sunblock on my face? Element of P. Sadomasochism. Quiche. How do you spell it? Q-U-I. Okay, quiche. Quiche. It's a pie containing unsweetened custard baked with other ingredients such as chese, miat, or ions. That was not helpful. Glad we did it together, though. Zip zap zoodle. It ain't cool to hit a poodle with the pool noodle. If you have been watching the entirety of Alex Reads the Bible and Alex Reads the Satanic Bible, which I will never release to anybody ever, you might have caught that joke. All right. Okay, we got this. Jesus Christ. But no information has survived concerning the original document written in the Quiche tongue, and it is possible that after Father Ximenez Chique, I'm going to say Chique, not Quiche. Father Ximenez had finished copying it. It was returned to its Indian owners and to the obscurity in which it had remained up to then. Interesting. So guarded a secret history, secret religion. Begs the question, why? If I had a bunch of people come over trying to tell me stuff about God or something, I'd be like, oh, I already got one. And I'd make something silly up, like the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I'm just wondering if the Quiche Maya. I haven't read any of this. I'm wondering if this is a big old troll on Ximenez. I hope it is. How would he have known the date of the book? Or that it was hidden for 150 years? In the 1700s, your detective skills and carbon dating and blah, blah, whatever were pretty well not there. Okay, whatever. Ximenez. I'm sorry if this seems like it's taking too long. It's not, though. Ximenez says in the foreword to his second translation of the manuscript that the lack of information about the ancient history of the Indians is due to the fact that they hid their books in which it was written. And if some of them had been found in some places, it was impossible to read or to understand them. For this reason, says the historian, much has been imagined about these various people and their origins. And he adds, this is a weird sentence, Lotus is farting. So, and he adds, now here's another excerpt from Ximenez. And so I determined to transcribe word for word all of their tales, and I translated them into our Spanish language from the Quiche language, in which I found they had been written. From the time of the conquest, when, as they say there, they changed their way of writing, they changed their way of writing to ours, but it was with great reserve that these manuscripts were kept among them. Ooh, that makes sense. If they're trying to, like, erase your language, why would you ever show them your most precious book? They're probably burning everything, right? Fucking conquistador turd bags. Let's read the T. There's pleasure in the pathless woods. Thanks, Lord Byron. But it is with great reserve that these manuscripts were kept among them, with such secrecy that neither the ancient ministers knew of it. And investigating this point, while I was in the parish of Santo Tomas Chichicastenango, I found that it was the doctrine with which they first imbibed with their mother's milk. And that all of them knew it almost by heart. Beautiful. And I found that they had many of these books among them. And because I've seen many historians who write about these people and their beliefs, say and touch upon some things contained in their histories which were only scattered fragments, since the historians had not seen the actual histories themselves, as they were written, I decided to put here and transcribe all of their histories according to the way they had written them. Now here's a footnote. That's from the Historia de la Provincia de San Vicente de Chiapa y Guatemala. I guess he wrote a bunch of books, huh? At least 2. In the foreword to his first Spanish version of the Quiche, I don't know how to say this. I would love to know. Quiche. I think that's it. In the foreword to his first Spanish version of the Quiche manuscript, in describing the purpose of his work, Father Ximenes had previously written, in addition to bringing to light what had been among the Indians in olden days, this work of mine attempts to give information on the errors which they had in their paganism, and which they still adhere to among themselves. I wanted to transcribe literally all of the traditions of these Indians, and also to translate them into the Spanish language, and put the commentaries, which are at the end, and which are like annotations to the narrative about the things of the Indians. For I imagine there may be many curious people who would like to know them in this manner. And in this manner, even if they do not know the language, they will be able to learn it. That's from Las Historias del Origen de los Indios de esta Provincia de Guatemala. That's the first book, I guess. In the Relation, which is a book, I think, of relation, I guess that's a trip notes. You relate a story to someone. So I'm assuming relation would be like trip notes. Of Fray Alfonso Ponce's expedition, it is said that one of the 3 things for which the Maya of the Yucatan, whom he visited in 1586, were most praised is that, this is a quote from his book, they had characters and letters with which they wrote their histories and ceremonies, and the order of the sacrifices to their idols, and their calendar and books made of the bark of a certain tree, which were some very long strips of a quarter or a third of a Spanish vara. Don't know what that is. In width, which they folded and brought together, and in this way it had the form of a bound book in quarto, more or less. Only the priests of the idols, who in that language they called Aquines, and some principal Indians, understood these letters and characters. Interesting. Or those were the only people that told you that they understood it. You gonna listen to Ponce? Oh, Ponce boy, huh? You come to my country? What language is that? Who are you? What are you trying to do? Oh, yes. Is that Asian? No. I was trying to do Spanish. I wish I didn't do any of that. Is it? Do I need to keep to white accents? For reals, I don't know. I want to do Jamaican accents so bad, but I don't do that. I don't know them very well. Maybe if I read The Little Mermaid, never mind. I need to shut the fuck up. Yeah, don't worry, no one's ever gonna watch this. I still don't think I'm gonna do it. The Indians of Mexico and Guatemala also preserved their histories and other writings by means of painting on cloths, some of which were saved from the general destruction in which the books and Indian documents disappeared. The bishops of Chiapas, Fray Bartolome de las Casas, that's his name, Fray Bartolome de las Casas, who from the beginning of the conquest gathered extensive information about the life and customs of the Indians, says in an oft-quoted passage that among them were chroniclers and historians who knew the origin of everything pertaining to their religion. Okay, what? Don't trust a bishop. The founding of their villages and cities, how the kings and lords carried out about their memorable deeds, how they governed, and how they elected their successors. They knew about their great men and their courageous captains, of their wars, their ancient customs, and all that belonged to their history. And he adds, these chroniclers kept account of the days, months, and years, and although they did not have writing such as ours, they had nevertheless their figures and characters. That's called writing, with which they could represent all they wanted to, and with them they formed their... So this is... They're large books, so they had enough figures to represent all that they wanted to, and with them they formed their large books with such keen and subtle skill that we might say our writings were not an improvement over theirs. Some of these books were seen by our clergy, and even I saw part of those, which were burned by the monks, apparently because they thought these books might harm the Indians in matters concerning religion, since at that time they were at the beginning of their conversion. So gross. Dude, that's from the book. That's a quote from Las Casas, who is the Bishop of Chiapas, from Apologetica Historia, Historical Apologies de las Indias, Volume 1 of Nuevo Biblioteca de Autores Español, from the chapter 100 and billion de los libros y de las tradiciones religiosas que había en Guatemala. How much more should I read of this? I'm going to clue you in on something. I'm not going to get all the way to page 16, where we can get to part 2, the manuscript of Chichicastenango. It's just too far, and I'm just not doing that good. I've read 1, 2, 3, 3.5 pages. We can get, well, I'm going to just pause it for a second. Hey, we're back. Thanks for sticking around. One, two. Oh, I've read 5 pages. The historians Acosta, Cavallero, and Ixtlilxochitl, IXTL, we'll call them Lil. Ixtlilxochitl, that's too much. I can't do it. I butcher shit right and left, but that's a rough one right there. Xochitl. Fuck it. Little Chittle say that the Indians, these historians, 3 of them, say that the Indians learned to recite the most notable speeches of their ancestors and the songs of their poets, and that one or another of them taught these to the youths in schools, which were connected with the temples. Wow. And in this way, they were handed down from generation to generation. You play telephone? You don't need to talk about that. That's not even it. That's barely information. You think you're smart for saying that? Okay, well, fine. Never mind. Bishop Las Casas, writing at the beginning of the conquest about 1570, says in the chapter previously cited from his Apologetica. Wait. Ooh, okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Sometimes you need things to be written like chronologically. We don't need to be jumping around. It's already weird. Bishop Las Casas, writing at the beginning of the conquest, about 1540, says in the chapter previously cited from his Apologetica that in some places they did not use this way of writing, but that the knowledge of the ancient things came down from one to the other, from hand to hand, and that 4 or 5, perhaps more, of those who devoted themselves to the work of historians were instructed about ancient things, memorizing all that pertained to their history and reciting it among themselves, while the others corrected them. But this method was naturally defective. See, good thing I brought up the telephone. Hello, you were right all along. Thanks, I fucking knew it. Sorry, you can edit that out if you want. In another passage of the Apologetica, Bishop Las Casas reports that the Mexican Indians had, I just Jerry Lee Lewis, reports, okay, calm down, buddy, that the Mexican Indians had 5 books of figures and characters. The first book contained a history and the computation of their time. I love it. And it's bizarre that they keep on saying books of figures and characters rather than just saying a book. I mean, have you ever picked up like a novel that's Japanese or something? It's still a book. Just because you don't get it, it doesn't. I think maybe, or why wouldn't it say that it was written in Chike or whatever? It's okay. And the computation of their time. The second had the days of ceremony and the feast days of each year. The third dealt with dreams, auguries. Looking that up. Augar. Augur. With the dreams, auguries, and superstitions. Oh, auguries. Oh, acidulate, admissible, amorphous, apnea, aromatic. What are we looking at? Where is it? Auguralism. Auguries. Just put that lighter right there. Every bird is a fake bird in disguise. A mallard, anarchy, answer, as, arugula, Caligula. I made one of those up. Audible. Augur. A-U-G-U-R. Augury. The art or practice of divination from omens or signs. That's called having psychosis or experiencing psychosis. I'm going to read what an augur is as a noun. One of a group of ancient Roman officials charged with observing and interpreting omens for guidance in public affairs. 2. Soothsayer, prophet. 3. To divine or predict as from omens, prognosticate. Dope, motherfucker. That's a cool word. Okay, the third book was about dreams, auguries, and superstitions. The fourth with the way in which children were named. Ooh! That's so cool to have like a way to, I don't know, that's really beautiful. In my country, we just name everyone Alex. Where were we? Children were named, that's interesting. In the fifth contained, well, I guess that's, how weird is it to just name your kid whatever you want? It's probably pretty weird. It's more normal than I thought. And the fifth contained their marriage rites and ceremonies. He adds that besides computing the years, feast days, and days of ceremony, the books of the first class told of their wars, victories, and defeats, the origin, genealogy, and deeds of the principal lords and public disasters, and their conquests down to the arrival of the Spaniards. This book mentions the people who in olden times inhabited the territory of Mexico, and of whom it says confusingly that they came from the 7 ravines. Okay. Wait, what happened to the Chronicle people? The other kingdom that's not Quiche. Doesn't matter. It's cool. 7 ravines. That's from Mexico, I guess. Let's look at that map. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe there's 7 in there. From Chiapas into Guatemala, into the northwestern side of Guatemala, where they might have, where I'm looking at a river, obviously, which might produce ravines. It doesn't matter. There's probably a reason why they call these people that inhabited the territory of Mexico in olden times people from the 7 ravines. Whatever. The first book, that first book says Las Casas in conclusion, is called Tonalamato. Xixtonalamatl. Xiuhtonalamatl. Xixtonalamatl. In the Indian language, or story of the counting of years. Lil Chittle, which is the name I cannot pronounce, a historian, on his part, makes the following statement about his Mexican ancestors. This is from some book of his. Each tribe had its writers. Some wrote annals, arranging in order the things that came to pass during each year, together with the day, month, and hour. Others, hour, huh? Interesting. To measure a day, similarly, across the universe is pretty normal. To measure a year across the planet Earth is pretty normal. To measure an hour is bizarre. To measure a month is bizarre to me, or a week. But whatever. They wrote annals, diaries, I think that's what that means, of the day. Others had charge of the genealogy of the descendants of the kings, lords, and persons of lineage, settling down with detailed accounts those who were born. In the same manner, striking out the names of those who had died. Does striking mean erasing them, or just putting a mark to indicate, like, our names lost from these people? Some had the care of painting. Some had the care of the painting of the boundaries, limits, and landmarks of the land. Oops. Whose they were and whom they belonged to, the lands. Others had charge of the books of laws, rites, and ceremonies which they followed, That's from Lil Chittle's book, Obras Historias. Obras. What does that mean? Eyebrow? Historias dos pro Lago. They must love Lago. Just kidding. According to Lil Chittle, Humatzin, the king of Tezcuco, had gathered together all of the chronicles of the Tolteca in the Tioamaxitli, or Divine Book. I don't know where Tezcuco is. Which contain the legends of the creation of the world, the emigration from Asia of all those peoples, Oh shit. Are we gonna run out of time? The stops on the journey, the dynasty of their kings, their social and religious institutions, their sciences, art, and so on. Emigration from Asia, huh? There's so much I don't know. In the well-known passage of the Relación by the Oidor Diego Garcia de la Palacio, written in Guatemala in 1576, which speaks of the ruins of Copan, one reads the following words. This is another Relación, which I think is a travel book, a travel diary. Diego Garcia del Palacio wrote this. I have tried to find out from the memory of the ancients what people lived there, what they know and hear of their ancestors. From the memory of the ancients, what people lived there, what they know and hear of their ancestors. I have not found books of their ancient things, nor do I believe that in all this district there is more than one, which I have. In 1576. They say that in olden times, a great lord of the province of Yucatan came here and built these buildings, and that at the end of a few years he returned to his home alone, and left them empty. Oh, like a physical lord, king of the province of Yucatan, came and helped build the buildings, and then left them empty. What does that mean? According to this book, it seems that in olden times, people from Yucatan conquered and subjected the provinces of Ayahal, and then in the question mark parentheses, Tayasal, Lacandon, Verapis, and the land of Chiquimula, and this of Copan. Okay. I'm assuming that those are all stuff on the map. Stuff on the map. Everybody loves looking at maps. You don't get a look at it, alright? I wish I could help you. Tacna, Aehel, Ayulatre, similar names. Ayutia, Totopcana. If you like making love at midnight. Oh shit, I lost my page. Okay, I got it. And that's from Garcia de la Palacio. Relación. It doesn't matter. It's from something he wrote in his Relación. Those facts from the book or manuscript which Garcia de Palacio possessed are interesting as proof of the theory that Copan was founded by the Maya of the north and subsequently abandoned. So the Maya were in the Yucatan? Did I already read that? Am I stupid? Don't tell me. That Copan was founded by the Maya of the north and subsequently abandoned. We do not know, however, whether or not this book may have contained other information of interest about the ancient inhabitants of that region. Herrera, the well-known compiler of the Spanish historical reports of the 16th century, repeats the information. That's always dangerous if you have one guy doing it. Herrera. Isn't that guy who wrote the Scooby-Doos? Hannah Herrera? Herrera Banana? Shh, not funny. That's kind of funny. What's that? Hanna-Barbera Herrera. The well-known compiler, Herrera, repeats the information about these native books, which was book, so it's not really... It says they have one book. That's what Garcia Palacio believed. But Herrera repeats the information about these native books, which are found in Yucatan and Honduras. Oviedo and Gomara, on their part, give account of the books of the Indians of Nicaragua. They have, says Gomara, okay. I'm sorry. So in Yucatan and Honduras. Now this is about the other two historians that were lumped together with Lil Chittle. Oviedo and Gomara, on their part, give an account of the books of the Indians of Nicaragua. They have, says Gomara, books of paper and parchment, a hand in width and 12 hands in length. Whoa, bro. Oh, it's a piece of paper. Piece of parchment. Folded like a bellows on both sides, of which they make known in blue, purple, and other colors the memorable events which take place. That's nice. It's cool. It's like that movie Midsummer. They have a nice painting of everything that happens. Bernal Diaz de Castillo, who wrote his verdadera historia de la conquista de la Nueva España, which means Saturday's history, tomorrow's history of the conquest of New Spain. Ooh, New Spain. In Guatemala, he wrote that book in Guatemala, says that the Indians of Mexico had booklets of paper made of the bark of a tree, which they called amate, which is ficus, and in them made their signs of the times and of past events, newspapers. Some of these books were still in existence at the end of the 17th century. In these books written by like Oviedo and Gomara, or these... No, they're talking about their pamphlets with figures and characters. Yes. Some of these books were still in existence at the end of the 17th century. In the territory which is now the Republic of Guatemala, Father Francisco Ximenez tells that in the province of Petén, to the south of Yucatan, the Spaniards during the expedition of 1696 against the Itza, don't know them, found some books written with characters which resembled Hebrew characters, and also those used by the Chinese. Doubtless, they were books written in Mayan hieroglyphics. And it is, because they're just dummies that say stuff. Okay. And it is possible that they may even be the same codices, which were taken to Europe and are now preserved in Dresden, Paris, and Madrid. So, yeah, Father Jimenez might have been alive back. Yeah, definitely alive back then. If he found and started translating the book in the 1700s, yeah, of course. In the early 1700s. Get your shit together, boy. In his Relación de las Entradas, in which he describes his journeys in the province of Petén, Father Avendaño, Daniel, what's the with the N? How do you say that N? Do you roll the N? Father Avendaño. N. Where's an N in something you know? Daniel de Loyola declares, God, I wish I was better at learning languages. It's so cool when people can do that. I'm so bad at it. Declares that formerly he had seen these books, which he calls anates, Anahthees, probably derived from the Mexican word amatles, which the Indians use, in which the same Franciscan missionary describes some books of the bark of trees smoothed and bleached with chalk, which by means of figures and characters painted on them contain prophecies or prognostications of future events. And farther on, he adds that these books were a quarter of a hand in length, about 5 fingers wide, and were made of the bark of trees, folded back and forth like a screen. Each leaf of the fold, the thickness of a Mexican piece of 8. What the fuck does that mean? These were painted on both sides with a variety of figures and characters, which not only gave an account of those days, months, and years, but also gave the ages, the 20-year periods. Every 20 years is an age. And the prophecies which their God announced to them. So I'm confused. Like, how many books is this? It seems like this is told from one book, but they're talking about finding the same books everywhere of strange languages that they cannot decipher. They can't tell the difference if it's Chinese or Hebrew or what they saw in a different village. I don't know. Future events. And farther on, he adds that these books were, I read that part. Mexican piece of 8, painted on both sides, 20-year periods, and the prophecies which their gods announced to them. That's the last thing I said. Ximenes also says that Indians read the horoscopes of the newborn children in books such as the one he possessed, which must have been a cholque, Cholquih, Cholque, Tzolkin in Maya, this is in parentheses, Tzolkin in Maya, Tzolkin, Tonalmatl in Nahuatl. Okay, whatever. And the one he possessed, the book he possessed, must have been a Cholca, or whatever, with the ritual calendar of 260 days, and the classification of those days as lucky or unlucky. Father Vicente Hernandez Spina found such a calendar in the village of Santa Catarina, Ixtlahuacan, in Guatemala, and it was produced in the magazine of the Sociedad Económica de Guatemala in 1870. Ximenes describes the book in this way. Is my name Alice? It is. So it seems like there's different books, right? Is this should I be paying more attention? Should I start over? It's been an hour. It's okay. It's okay to take an hour to read a book sometimes. Like, literally nothing wrong with that. I don't think I can make it all the way, though. And this is seen in a book which they have had as a prophecy. So this is what Ximenes says. From the time of their paganism, in which they have all the months and signs corresponding to each day, and one of which I have in my possession. So he has a type of book, which is like a calendar. The Canon Ordones y Aguiar copies a paragraph of the Constituciones Diocesanas of the Bishop of Chiapas, Nueñez de la Vega, in which he relates the superstitions of the Tzetal Indians, and tells of a very old Tzeltal Indians, and tells of a very old historical booklet written on them, which was in the hands of the prelate. So we gotta look up prelate. Prelate, that's called being on time. Prelate, sorry. Help! I need somebody to provide what's necessary to accomplish a task. That's help. I'm in the dictionary. Shut up. IRST. Gotta do the alphabet every time in my head. I can't memorize it. LMNOP. Pronoun? No, that's not it. This is pronation. Rotation of the hand or forearm. See, I'm okay with doing that accent. Relation. Rotation, because I'm Russian on TV. I have this weird bit part where I've been playing by Vladimir Putin. That guy's been dead for 20 years. It's just been me. What are we looking for? Man, I don't want to do this. Are you on time? Are you late? Are you prolapsed? Do you have prize money, private prison, previous, present, preen, to trim or dress with the beak of a tongue? Prelate. What the fuck was this even about? Anyways, now. Where was I? Oh, what are we even talking about? The bishop at some point said he knew of an old book which was in the hands of the prelate. Prelate. An ecclesiastic of a high order, as an archbishop or a bishop. A church dignitary. Ecclesiastic. I definitely don't want to look that word up. This book, according to the bishop, clearly shows by generations the names of the principal men and their ancestors. Man, I'm done. That's okay. That was a long ass episode, man. It's cool. You don't got to do these big motherfuckers, man. It's cool. Just chill out. You can do these small motherfuckers. It's fine. It's not small. This is huge. I want to remind everybody why we're really reading this book. It's because of crop circles. It's just like 9/11. We're not going to forget about it. I haven't counted to 912. In almost a quarter of a century. Because I can't. I don't know what that joke really meant, but I think it was funny. I think it was, okay? Alright. Well, kind of just relating the fun history of what's going on, of how they found this book, of how many different people speak of kind of just going over and over again, right? Was that even fun? I don't know. Did you learn something? That's dumb. Let's come up with a theme song. Okay, what's this one about? Aztecans. And my hand don't work no good no more. Hand don't work no good no more. That was it. He did it. He put it all together. I wish I could tune my guitar. I wish I could put on strings. I wish I could do a whole lot of things. I'm paralyzed with the thought that I might try to put guitar strings on my guitar and fail. No, it's because I fucking broke this. And I can't put anything on it until I buy a new one of these. This is the good guitar too. Oh, I fucked the whole thing up. Cool. Well, I mean, that's a sign from Godzilla. Should I skip the rest of the introduction? What do you think? Would you listen to that? I don't think I would. 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 I wouldn't do it. I might do it. Should I do it? I'm definitely not going to do it. Would you do it? I might. Not right now, that's for sure. Maybe